Healing the Billionaire Lady. Chapter 1. The Boy at the Back Door. I always thought leftovers were just scraps you tossed to stray dogs. But that day, standing on the back steps of Whitmore Manor, Marcus Greene realized leftovers could change lives. Maybe even save them. He wasn't supposed to be there. The help used the side gate. People like him didn't even get to touch the fancy iron doorbell. But here he was, barefoot, sweaty, holding his breath like the whole mansion could smell his poverty. Delilah Whitmore appeared in her wheelchair, wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than his grandma's entire house. Her hair was perfect, not a strand out of place, and her face looked carved out of ice. Her blue eyes scanned him from head to toe, pausing just long enough to make him feel like dirt under her Louboutin wheels. "You're on private property, boy. I suggest you turn your little behind around before I call the sheriff." "I ain't here to steal, ma'am," Marcus said. His voice shook, but he kept his chin up. "I came to help you walk again." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Then Delilah's laugh burst out sharp and cold, bouncing off marble walls like a gunshot. "Lord have mercy, are you serious, you? Heal me? Boy, I spent 8 years in this chair, $15 million on doctors from LA to Switzerland, and you, a street kid in hand-me-downs, think you're gonna do what no one else could? You got jokes." "I'm not joking, ma'am. I can help. Just give me the food you're throwing away, that's all I'm asking." Delilah leaned forward slightly. Marcus noticed the faintest twitch in her right leg when she moved. Most folks wouldn't have caught it, but he wasn't most folks. "You really think you're clever, huh? Coming to my house trying to hustle me with voodoo or whatever back-alley magic your grandma taught you. Sweetheart, I don't do fairy tales." "No, ma'am," Marcus said, calm like he rehearsed this in the mirror. "Fairy tales are about rich folks like you rescuing poor kids like me. But this is real life, and in real life sometimes it's the poor kid who saves the rich lady." For the first time, Delilah's smirk wavered, just a flicker. Then she caught herself, eyes hardening like concrete setting in the sun. "Get out, and don't come back. Next time I see you on my property, you're leaving in handcuffs." The door slammed so hard the glass rattled. Marcus stood there for a moment, staring at his reflection in the polished brass. He saw a skinny 12-year-old with dirt on his cheeks, but behind those eyes there was something sharper. He whispered to himself as he turned to walk back across the street. "She don't know it yet, but them leftovers she's tossing out every night, they might just be her ticket to freedom." Back at the duplex, Grandma Jo sat rocking in her chair on the porch, watching Marcus cross the road with that look kids get when they know they're about to do something dangerous but necessary. She didn't ask no questions, just patted the seat beside her and handed him a glass of sweet tea. "She laughed, Grandma," Marcus said, staring at the cracked sidewalk. "Like I'm some fool for even asking." Jo chuckled low, her gold tooth catching the porch light. "That's 'cause she's scared, boy. Folks laugh loudest when they're trying to drown out their fear. You saw her legs twitch, didn't you?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Uh-huh. Her body's fine. It's her mind that's locked up. But you better listen good now. Healing a body is easy. Healing a prideful soul? That's like pulling teeth from a gator." Marcus cracked a grin. "Guess I better bring pliers." Jo laughed so hard she had to wipe her eyes. "Lord, you got your mama's stubborn streak, but don't forget, when you challenge folks with power, they fight dirty. You ready for that?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He just sipped his tea, feeling the heat of it slide down his throat. He thought about Delilah's cold eyes, her cruel laugh, the twitch in her leg she didn't even notice. "Yeah, Grandma," he said finally. "I'm ready. She thinks I'm a nobody, but she's wrong. This nobody's about to change her whole life." Jo rocked back in her chair, muttering under her breath, "Lord help us both, 'cause she gon' come at you like a hurricane." But Marcus wasn't scared. Not yet. He didn't know it then, but storms got nothing on a wounded woman with money, power, and secrets she'd kill to keep buried. Chapter 2. Lessons from Grandma Jo. They say pride don't just blind you, it makes you deaf too. Marcus learned that quick when Delilah Whitmore slammed her door so hard it nearly shook loose the brass numbers nailed above it. But across the street in the little yellow duplex with peeling paint and a porch swing that creaked like an old man's knees, Grandma Jo was waiting with her usual mix of wisdom and sarcasm. Marcus dropped onto the bottom step of the porch like all the weight of the world had hit him at once. His shoulders slumped, his chin rested on his knees. Jo didn't ask no questions, she just handed him a glass of sweet tea, thick with sugar like the South demands. "She laughed, Grandma," Marcus said after a long sip. "Not just laughed, she laughed like I was the punchline to a bad joke." "That's 'cause you scared her, baby," Jo said, rocking slow and steady. "Folks with money get mighty jumpy when somebody poor starts talking like they got answers money can't buy. But she don't even know me. She don't know you either. All she saw was some broke kid on her steps, and she decided I wasn't worth listening to." Jo gave him a side eye so sharp it could have cut bread. "Boy, rich folks been doing that since they first built houses big enough to need steps. You think her kind gonna just invite you in for tea 'cause you offered to fix what all them fancy doctors couldn't? Nah. She too busy worshiping her pride." Marcus watched a firefly float past, its light blinking soft like a heartbeat. "You think I should let it go? Leave her be?" "Lord, no," Jo said with a grin. "That woman's like a house on fire. She don't know she burning yet, but she is. And you, baby, might be the only one holding the water bucket." Marcus didn't smile. He was too busy replaying every second at that mansion door. The twitch in Delilah's leg she didn't even notice. The way her voice cracked for just a second before turning sharp again. He knew what he saw. Years of caring for Jo had trained his eyes. He knew pain. Real pain don't smirk at you like Delilah did. Later that night, while cicadas sang their loud summer hymn, Marcus sat at the kitchen table flipping through Jo's old notebooks. They were filled with hand-drawn charts of pressure points, herbal recipes, and scribbled stories about patients Jo swore had walked out of wheelchairs after she took care of their souls first. "You sure about all this, Grandma?" Marcus asked, tracing one of the faded diagrams. Jo leaned in the doorway, arms folded. "Boy, I've been sure since the day I watched a woman stand after 20 years sitting. Doctor said she was done, but her mind kept her legs in chains, not her body. You think Delilah's any different?" Marcus shook his head. "No. She's stuck in her own head. I seen her feet move when she yelled, muscles don't lie." "Then you already halfway there," Jo said, her gold tooth flashing as she smiled. "But listen here, Marcus Greene, healing a body is easy. Healing a heart full of hate and fear? That's a whole nother battle. She's gonna fight you and it won't be fair." Marcus smirked a little. Good thing I don't play fair either. Joe laughed so hard her shoulders shook. That's my boy. Just remember, when you stand up to somebody used to sitting on a throne, they gon' throw everything they got to keep you down. By the time Marcus climbed into bed, his mind was already racing. He thought about the leftovers piled in Delilah's trash cans every night. Perfectly good food tossed like it was nothing. He thought about her fancy doctors with their sad little pills and false smiles. And he thought about Joe's words echoing in his head like a drum beat. She don't know it yet, he whispered to the ceiling fan spinning slow above him. But she about to meet a Greene, and we don't give up easy. In that moment, Marcus didn't feel like a skinny 12-year-old anymore. He felt like a storm waiting to hit. Chapter 3. The battle begins in Baton Rouge. News didn't travel slow. It rode on the backs of gossiping neighbors, nosy church ladies, and chatty barbers faster than any Wi-Fi signal. So it didn't take long for Delilah Whitmore to find out about Marcus Greene's bold little visit to her back door. And if there was one thing Delilah hated more than being pitied, it was being underestimated. She sat in her marble kitchen that morning, swirling cream into her coffee like she was planning a war. She wasn't used to people talking back, let alone a barefoot kid from across the street. She dialed her phone, the nails clicking against her iPhone like a countdown. Principal Carter? Yes, it's Delilah Whitmore. We need to discuss a certain scholarship student of yours, Marcus Greene. He's been wandering the neighborhood causing disturbances. At Marcus's school the next day, the principal called him into the office. His palms were sweaty and his sneakers squeaked on the linoleum floor as he walked in. Marcus, Principal Carter said, frowning over her glasses. You need to remember your place. The Whitmores have been generous to this school for decades. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Marcus kept his head down, gripping the straps of his worn-out backpack. He knew what this was about. Delilah's power wasn't just money, it was influence, and she was swinging it like a hammer. Later that week, the landlord at Riverside Gardens came knocking on Grandma Joe's door. He held a clipboard with a smug look. Miss Thompson, we've had complaints about noise, trash left outside, and Joe didn't let him finish. She leaned on her cane and squinted up at him. Complaints from who? Ghosts? 'Cause my TV been broke for months and Marcus don't even got friends loud enough to bother nobody. The landlord shifted nervously but didn't leave. Fines followed anyway. Notices for tiny infractions. Surprise inspections. Suddenly, life at the duplex felt less like home and more like a trap. At dinner one night, Marcus stabbed his fork into his beans with more force than necessary. She's trying to push us out, Grandma. She's mad 'cause I said something she didn't want to hear. Joe didn't flinch. She'd faced bigger storms than Delilah Whitmore. She stirred her greens slow and said, Boy, rich folks fight dirty 'cause that's all they know. When they scared, they don't talk, they swing. Marcus sighed, staring at his plate. She's got money, power, everything. What do we got? Joe grinned, her gold tooth catching the light. We got the truth. And baby, truth don't need a bankroll, it just needs time. But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that time wasn't on their side. Delilah had already started planting seeds of doubt about him in the neighborhood. Folks whispered when he passed by, their eyes sliding away quick like they didn't want to get caught staring. Even the corner store clerk who used to give him free candy barely nodded at him now. That night, Marcus sat at the little kitchen table with Joe's old notebook spread out like maps to some secret treasure. He traced the pages, rereading her notes about patients who had walked again after years in chairs. "She's stuck in her mind," Marcus murmured. "Her legs ain't broke. Her soul is." Joe, sitting across from him, nodded slow. "You see it now, huh? That's why healing her body won't be enough. You gotta pull the poison out of her heart, too. And Lord knows that's a deeper wound." Marcus tapped his pencil on the page. "What if she never lets me close enough? What if she shuts me out forever?" Joe sipped her tea and leaned back. "Then you make her come to you. Folks like her. They crumble when the world stops clapping for 'em. All you gotta do is wait. Pride's like a glass house, Marcus. One good rock and it shatters." Marcus grinned, though his eyes held a trace of worry. "Guess I better start collecting rocks." Joe chuckled, her laugh rough like gravel. "And I better start praying 'cause you about to wake up a hornet's nest, boy." Marcus didn't say it out loud, but he knew Joe was right. This wasn't just about helping Delilah Whitmore walk again. This was about surviving the storm she was already brewing. And storms like her didn't just pass. They destroyed everything in their path. Chapter 4. The Truth Hurts. They say a lie can run halfway around the world before the truth even puts on its shoes. But Marcus Greene wasn't planning on letting Delilah Whitmore's lies run any further. By now he had seen enough from his spot across the street to know the real story. He'd watched her feet twitch when she thought no one was looking. He'd seen her shift in that wheelchair when anger flared. And every night while she sat alone in her mansion, Marcus and Grandma Joe pieced together a plan as carefully as a quilt. Delilah, meanwhile, was busy making her own moves. She called in favors from high places, whispered Marcus's name like it was poison into the ears of anyone who would listen. A scholarship kid trying to hustle her, a poor boy stalking her mansion. She painted the picture so well folks didn't even question it. And in Baton Rouge, rumors stuck to a person like summer sweat. Marcus felt the weight of it all pressing down on him every day he walked to school. People stared a little longer. Teachers sighed when they said his name. Even the janitor, Mr. Clyde, stopped giving him fist bumps in the hallway. But Marcus didn't quit. He couldn't. Joe had taught him better than that. "Baby," she told him one night, stirring her herbal tea, "you don't wrestle with pigs unless you're ready to get dirty. And Lord knows that woman rolling around in mud already. Let her. You stay clean. Keep your eyes sharp." So Marcus kept watching. Late at night, he'd sneak out onto the rickety fire escape and peer across at Whitmore Manor. He started noticing patterns. Certain nights, Delilah would send all the staff home early, claiming she needed peace and quiet. But the lights in her private gym would flicker on around midnight. A shadow would move past the windows, pacing, bending, stretching. One night, Marcus saw her jogging slowly on a treadmill. His jaw tightened, but his heart didn't feel angry. It felt heavy, like he was carrying her secret for her. "She ain't paralyzed," Marcus whispered to himself. She's hiding. From the world. From herself." The next morning, Marcus showed Joe a shaky video he'd recorded from his phone. It wasn't the best quality, but you could clearly see Delilah walking without assistance. Joe squinted at the screen and shook her head. That woman's been sitting in that chair so long she started believing her own story. But baby, you just pulled the mask off. Now you better be careful. Folks protecting a lie fight harder than folks protecting the truth. That Sunday, Marcus stood in his room staring at the notebook where he'd written down everything he'd learned. He didn't just have proof of her walking. He had found old newspaper clippings in the library about her husband's sudden death, her rise to power, her family's history. Every thread wove into a bigger picture, and Marcus could see it clearer than ever. Delilah wasn't just paralyzed in her legs, she was paralyzed in her soul. The lies, the power, the guilt, they'd all wrapped around her like chains. As the church bells rang across town, Marcus whispered to himself, "This ain't about making her walk. This is about making her stand. For real." That evening, Marcus and Joe sat at the kitchen table under the warm glow of a single flickering bulb. The house smelled of cornbread and sage. Marcus leaned in, his voice low but steady. "Tomorrow I'm going over there, not the back door, the front. She's gonna hear me out this time." Joe studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, baby. Just remember, truth don't shout. It don't need to. It stands all by itself." Marcus closed his notebook and pushed his chair back. His hand shook a little, but his jaw was set like stone. He wasn't a scared kid anymore. He was a healer. And healers, Grandma Joe always said, had to be brave enough to touch the wound even when it bled. Across the street, the lights in Whitmore Manor burned late into the night. Delilah Whitmore had no idea her long-buried secrets were about to come knocking. And this time, they weren't leaving. Chapter 5. The Healing. They say you can't heal a wound until you stop pretending it ain't there. That Sunday morning felt like Judgment Day when Marcus Greene walked up the stone steps of Whitmore Manor. Not sneaking through the back like some scared kid, but striding straight to the front door. The sky was heavy with gray clouds, and a warm breeze carried the smell of magnolias mixed with rain. Grandma Joe stood across the street on her porch, arms folded, watching him with the kind of calm only a woman who'd survived a lifetime of storms could have. Delilah Whitmore answered the door wearing a silk robe and a scowl sharp enough to cut glass. Her wheelchair sat behind her like a throne she wasn't ready to give up. Her eyes widened for half a second, seeing Marcus standing there clean and confident, but she caught herself and narrowed them fast. "You got some nerve showing up here again," she said, her voice cold but cracking around the edges. Marcus didn't flinch. "I came to keep my promise. Today's the day you walk again." Delilah laughed, a dry, bitter sound that didn't reach her eyes. "You still on that? Lord, you're persistent for a child. But this ain't a fairy tale, and you ain't no savior." "You're right," Marcus said. "I'm not here to save you. I'm here to show you how to save yourself." For a moment, the air between them felt charged, like a storm waiting to break. Marcus took a step closer, lowering his voice. "I know you've been walking at night. I seen it. Your gym lights, the treadmill. You ain't paralyzed, Ms. Whitmore. You're hiding." Delilah froze. She gripped the door frame so tight her knuckles turned white. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I do," Marcus said. "Your body's fine, but your soul's been in chains so long you forgot how to stand." Delilah's lip trembled, and for the first time the mask slipped. She wasn't the Ice Queen of Baton Rouge no more. She was just a tired woman drowning in secrets. "I lost everything," she whispered. "My husband, my dignity. You think I stayed in this chair for fun? I was scared if I stood up I'd have nothing left. Marcus shook his head. But you ain't got nothing now. Pride took it all. You think that chair protects you, but it's a prison. And you got the key. All you gotta do is stand. The silence stretched so long Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. Then Delilah let out a shaky breath. Her hands slid from the doorframe to the arms of her chair. Fine, prove me wrong. Marcus nodded. You're not proving me wrong. You're proving yourself right. Marcus nodded. You're not proving me wrong. You're proving yourself right. With a grunt, Delilah pushed up. Her legs wobbled like a newborn foal's. She stumbled forward, catching herself on the doorframe. A sob ripped from her chest, half pain, half relief. For the first time in 8 years, Delilah Whitmore stood on her own 2 feet. Across the street, Grandma Jo clapped her hands once and whispered, "Amen." Months passed, and the Whitmore Manor wasn't the same no more. The gates opened to the community. Kids played in the gardens where Marcus once stood watching. The mansion became the Joe Greene Healing Center, named after a woman who taught the whole neighborhood that healing ain't about money, it's about heart. Marcus didn't stick around for praise. At 14, he got a scholarship to study medicine. But every summer he came back to Baton Rouge, sitting on that same porch with Joe, sipping sweet tea and laughing like a boy who had seen the world and still believed in it. Delilah visited the center every week. She walked slow but steady, her head held higher than it had in years. Folks whispered when they saw her, but she didn't care. She was too busy teaching others what she'd learned the hard way. That pride don't heal wounds, but humility does. One evening, as the sun set over the Mississippi, Delilah stood beside Marcus in the garden. The kids ran circles around them, their laughter sweet and wild. "You really changed my life," she said softly. Marcus smiled, his eyes on the horizon. "Nah, you changed your own life. I just reminded you how." Delilah chuckled, wiping at her eyes. "Little boy, big wisdom, you sound like your grandma. She'd say I finally earned my place at the table." And as the cicadas sang and the sky turned gold, Marcus Greene understood that healing wasn't about fixing legs or curing sickness. It was about breaking the chains we put on ourselves and teaching others to do the same.